Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a paper from back in 1999, but it feels incredibly current. It didn't just predict a crisis, it sort of explained this creeping uniformity that's replacing the unique, vibrant world we thought we knew. We're diving into biotic homogenization, a few winners replacing many losers in the next mass extinction, by Michael McKinney and Julie Lockwood, a really seminal paper. Our mission today is to unpack its core argument, understand how this homogenization thing works, and, well, figure out why its message is maybe even more important now.
It's definitely a powerful way to look at biodiversity loss today. And yeah, we should start right there. What is biotic homogenization? Basically, it's the process of everything becoming more similar globally. You see local, unique species, the ones found only in one specific place, maybe an island or a valley, they get replaced.
Replaced by what?
By species that are already common everywhere, or often by species that humans have moved around, the non-native ones. Okay. So if I have, say, 100 species in my local woods, and maybe 10 specialized local ones disappear, but then 10 new, really common, widespread species move in, the total number might stay the same, 100 species.
Exactly. The raw count looks okay, maybe, but the character of those woods has changed. It's become less unique.
It's been homogenized.
Precisely. You're losing that spatial diversity, that local flavor and ecological function. And the authors, McKinney and Lockwood, they argue this isn't just a side effect of what we do. They framed it as the actual mechanism driving what could be the next mass extinction.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they connected the pattern. They saw this elective loss of specialists to what happened after huge global disturbances in Earth's deep past, like climate shifts or geological upheavals. Those events also left behind less diverse biotas.
That really raises the stakes, doesn't it? It suggests we're not just accidentally losing species here and there. It sounds more like we're running a giant global experiment that favors certain kinds of life. How does that work? How does the selection happen? Well, homogenization happens when there's big, widespread environmental change. And let's face it, human activity is the main driver now. This change promotes the spread of some species, the winners, and shrinks the ranges of others, the losers. It comes from two main things. First, we modify environments, directly think deforestation, building cities, farming, that wipes out local specialists who can't adapt.
Right, they need specific conditions we just removed.
Exactly. And second, global transportation. We move species all over the planet, intentionally or not. And here's the key bit. Many of those introduced species, the non-natives, they actually thrive in the disturbed, messy environments we create.
Ah, I see. So we're kind of clearing the stage and bringing on the actors who do well on that cleared stage. But if this is potentially a mass extinction, the scale seems overwhelming. How do they actually count the losers, going beyond just the official endangered species lists?
Yeah, that was a really important part of their work. Just looking at the IUCN Red List, the official list of threatened and endangered species, well, it seriously underestimates the real problem. So they gathered data on actual observed declines from studies all over at different scales. They tracked species losing ground long before they'd ever get officially listed.
We know those lists lag behind reality, but what kind of difference did they find? Was there a big aha moment in the numbers?
Oh, absolutely. The bird data was just startling. At the time they wrote the paper, about 11% of the world's bird species were on that official IUCN Red List. Okay, 11%.
Seems like a lot, but maybe manageable.
Well, here's the thing. When they compiled all the documented declines, population shrinking, range contracting, habitat loss, they found a much, much higher number. Get this, 70%. 70% of global bird species were known to be declining in some way.
70. Compared to 11% on the list. That's staggering.
It is. And if that holds true, if most of those declining species eventually go extinct,
then we're not just approaching a mass extinction event. We're kind of right in the thick of it.
That's the disturbing link they made. The big 5 mass extinctions in the fossil record, they wiped out over 50% of species. So if even most of that 70% currently declining eventually vanish, well, the scale is comparable. It puts the modern era right up there with the biggest biological crises in Earth's history.
And they had specific examples too, right? It wasn't just a global estimate.
No, absolutely. They showed it happening on the ground. 56% of rainforest bird species were declining in Sumatran agricultural landscapes, or 52% of bird species losing out because of suburban sprawl in California. And sometimes it's even worse locally, 93% of amphibians hit hard by deforestation in Maine. The loser list is just huge, both in percentage and sheer numbers.
Okay, so the picture for the losers is pretty grim. A huge number are declining, far more than officially recognized. Now, what about the winners? The species spreading out. If 70% of birds are declining, how can just a few winners make such a difference? You mentioned earlier only maybe 2% of birds globally are successful invaders. That doesn't sound like enough to take over.
Right, and that's a crucial point about why homogenization works. It's not just about the number of winner species, but about their characteristics. While the global number of really successful invasive species, like that 2% figure for birds, seems small compared to the losers, these few winners have traits that let them spread widely and fill the gaps left by many, many different specialists.
So they're the ultimate generalists. They can thrive almost anywhere, especially in the disturbed places we create.
Exactly that. And when McKinney and Lockwood looked at local studies where you can really see the impact of disturbance, they found something interesting. Even the native species that benefited from disturbance, the native winners, only made up a small fraction of the original community, maybe 5% to 29%. Remember that California suburbanization study? 52% of bird species were declining,
Yeah.
but only 5% were actually increasing or expanding.
Wow, so it confirms the pattern. Lots of unique specialists out, a few adaptable generalists in.
Precisely. A huge loss of variety replaced by a much smaller, more uniform set of survivors.
Okay, this is where, for me, the paper got really fascinating. It's not just that species are vanishing and others spreading. The really novel idea was that this isn't random across the tree of life, right? The winners and losers tend to cluster in particular families or groups. So we're not losing a random grab bag of species. We're disproportionately losing certain kinds of life and gaining others.
Yes, exactly. The non-random nature is key. Let's talk about the losers first. Certain traits that make species vulnerable to extinction, they aren't spread evenly. They're concentrated in particular families. Think globally. Parrots, the Cetacidae family, or large mammals like apes and rhinos. They are way overrepresented on threatened lists compared to what you'd expect by chance.
And why them specifically? What's the common thread?
Often it's traits like large body size and, crucially, low fecundity, meaning they reproduce slowly. Think big animals, long generation times. They're often specialists, too. They just can't bounce back quickly enough when humans change everything so fast. And you see the same pattern locally, like certain forest specialist birds, maybe babblers, or specific frogs that only live deep inside forests. The very things that made them successful specialists for ages now make them incredibly vulnerable.
Okay, so that's the losers clustering. What about the winners? Who are the champions taking over?
Well, globally, the biosphere is increasingly dominated by the same few successful families. The real superstars of the Anthropocene, think grasses, the Poaceae family, basically the weeds of the plant world, and things like ducks, the Anatidae. Grasses alone, the paper noted, have something like 180 more weed species than you'd expect if weediness was just randomly scattered among plant families. That's a huge taxonomic skew.
A massive bias towards these successful groups. What traits make them so good at winning?
It seems to boil down to two main kinds of traits. First, traits for establishment. Things like growing really fast, tolerating a wide range of conditions, classic weed behavior, or maybe being able to fix nitrogen, letting them invade poor soils.
Stuff that lets them get a foothold anywhere.
Right? And second, traits related to transportation. Basically, traits that make humans want to move them around.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
Think about ornamental plants we like, such as roses, or birds we transport for sport, or as pets, pheasants, parrots, again, ironically, featuring here too. We are, often without realizing it, actively selecting and spreading these families globally because they suit our purposes or aesthetics.
So it's a double advantage. They have survival traits and traits that make us help them spread. If you put these opposing clusters together, the vulnerable specialists and the hardy mobile generalists, it points towards a massive simplification, doesn't it?
It really does. The authors connect this to ecological concepts. R selection versus K selection. The losers, the specialists, tend to have K-selected traits. They invest in survival. Large size, slow reproduction, specialized needs, slow dispersal. They're built for stability.
Quality over quantity.
Kind of, yeah. Whereas the winners tend to have R-selected traits. They invest in rapid reproduction and opportunity. Small size, high fecundity, generalist diets, fast dispersal. They're built for colonizing new or disturbed places.
Okay, let's translate that R and K stuff for listeners. If we're swapping out these specialized K species for generalist R species everywhere, what does that actually do to ecosystems? What are we losing functionally?
We're losing ecological complexity, resilience, and uniqueness. Case-selected specialists often play very specific, critical roles. Maybe one animal is the only disperser for a certain large seed, or the only pollinator for a rare flower. Or maybe it engineers the soil in a very particular way.
Unique jobs.
Exactly. When you replace dozens of these specialists with just a few widespread generalists, like a common grass or a pigeon, those generalists perform much simpler, broader functions. So you end up with, well, simpler food webs, fewer intricate interactions. The whole system becomes less complex and potentially less stable, less able to cope with future changes.
Right, so it's not just that places start to look the same, but they also function in a simpler, maybe weaker way, like
Yeah.
the engine's missing cylinders, even if it's still running.
That's a great analogy. It captures that loss of functional richness. And while the findings were already pretty stark back in '99, the authors did acknowledge a key limitation,
Which was,
that the true number of winners was probably being underestimated in their data.
really, why would the winter side be underestimated? It seems like invaders get a lot of attention.
Well, several reasons. They pointed out just how poor the data collection often is on species introductions. There are also big-time lags as species arrives, but it might take decades before it becomes recognizably invasive or widespread.
Ah, the sleeper effect.
Exactly. Plus, there are cryptic invaders we might not even recognize as non-native yet, and many winners might just be expanding locally for now, not globally invasive, but still contributing significantly to homogenization at that local scale.
Okay, so there's a built-in delay. The problem is likely snowballing faster than we could measure it even then, and certainly now.
That seems very likely. And this underestimation, this lag, feeds into their really striking final conclusion about the sheer scale of this event. They argued that if things continue unchecked, the eventual level of biotic homogenization could actually exceed what happened during even the biggest mass extinctions in Earth's deep past.
Hang on, exceed the Permian extinction, the one that wiped out 90% of marine life. How could human activity be worse than, say, massive volcanic eruptions or an asteroid impact?
It sounds counterintuitive, I know, but the reason is us and our transport systems. In past extinction events, even if generalists survived, they still had to slowly expand their ranges over geological time, often blocked by oceans or mountains. Today, humans act as an instantaneous global delivery service. We actively move species across oceans, between continents, into isolated places like islands that they could never have reached naturally.
We're bypassing all the natural barriers.
Completely. Think of bringing continental rats and weeds to remote Pacific islands that collapses millions of years of evolutionary isolation overnight. We're accelerating the mixing process exponentially, creating a potential for global uniformity that, they argue, might be unparalleled in Earth's entire history.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive has really shown how human activity isn't just causing random extinctions. It's actively selecting for a specific, narrow set of winner traits. And that's leading to this accelerated loss of biodiversity, yes, but also a loss of ecological complexity, driving this global homogenization. It redefines the crisis. It's not just about loss, it's about what replaces it, uniformity.
And I think the final thought the authors leave us with is really provocative, and it connects right back to your missing cylinders analogy. They suggest that even if many of these declining specialist species don't go completely extinct, maybe they hang on in tiny refuges, zoos, or protected pockets.
Yeah.
They'll effectively become virtually invisible components of the biosphere, reduced to such small numbers and ranges that they no longer play a meaningful ecological role.
Invisible.
Yeah.
Functionally extinct, even if technically still alive somewhere.
Exactly. Think about what that means. The unique functions, the special jobs they did, the complex interactions they drove those just stop mattering at the ecosystem level long before the very last individual dies. The world we interact with, the ecological systems that provide services, becomes fundamentally simpler, poorer, even while those species technically still exist on some list.
So the biggest danger might be this creeping invisibility, this loss of function that happens quietly before the final extinction event. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What unique role, what bit of complexity is fading out in your own local environment right now, about to be replaced by something more common, something less special. Definitely something to think about. We'll leave it there for this deep dive.